بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. This is the third lesson of Umdat al-Fiqh, in which we begin inshaAllah ta'ala with the chapter of purification. The author says rahimahullah ta'ala Kitab al-Tahara, the book of Tahara. And the first section on purification is Ahkam al-Miyah, the rulings relating to the types of water. Because, first of all, purification is one of the conditions of Salah. And Salah is the greatest pillar of Islam after the testimony of faith. And this is why the scholars always begin with the chapter of purification in the books of fiqh. And water is always the first section, because water is the thing that you use to purify yourself. And this is why the author rahimahullah says, خُلِقَ الْمَاءُ طَهُورًا يُطَهِّرُ مِنَ الْأَحْدَاثِ وَالنَّجَاسَاتِ فَلَا تَحْصُلُ الطَّهَارَةُ بِمَاءٍ غَيْرِهِ. Water was created pure, and it is purifying. It purifies from ritual impurities and physical impurities. Ritual impurities being impurities that are, I guess you can say, spiritual, because you can't see them. I can't see if someone doesn't have wudu. That's a ritual impurity. Someone who doesn't have wudu. I can't look at someone and say, you don't have wudu. Okay. Physical impurities are things, however, that are actually physical. You need to get rid of them. You need to wash them. Okay. And so this is the difference between a ritual impurity and a physical impurity. He says, rahimahullah, it purifies from ritual impurities and physical impurities, and purity cannot be attained by any liquid other than water. And this is why water is the first section, because it is the only thing which purifies. Whether you are making wudu or ghusl, you have to use water. You have to use water. You can't make wudu with juice or coffee and say, well, coffee cleans just as well, so I can make wudu with coffee. No. Wudu can only be done with water. Similarly, when you purify yourself from an impurity, that can only be achieved by using water. Okay, that can only be achieved by using water. For example, I have some urine on my clothing. I have to wash that urine with water. I can't go and get some coffee or some tea or even some liquidy soap. Yeah, according to the majority of scholars, even some liquidy soap or something along those lines to wash those clothing. You can use the soap, but you need to use water over it. Okay? Water needs to be the thing that purifies. Water needs to be the thing that purifies, because the Prophet ﷺ commanded water to be used to wash impurities, even though water wasn't as readily available as it is today. And still he commanded water to be used, which shows that water is the only thing that purifies. And alhamdulillah, we're in a time of vast blessing. Using water to purify our clothing and to purify our beds and carpets and so on is all permissible. That doesn't mean, like I said, you're not allowed to use soap. You can use it, but don't restrict it to soap or another liquid other than water. Water must be the thing that does the purifying. The author then says, rahimahullah ta'ala, and before we move on, I just want to explain that the types of water are three. Note this down and make sure you learn it, because by knowing this we'll be able to understand the rest. The first type of water is water that is tahur. The second type of water is water that is tahir. And the third is najis. So we have tahur, tahir and najis. Tahur is pure and purifying. So it is pure in and of itself, and it actually purifies. It cleans. It cleans other impurities. You can use it to clean impurities. You can use it to make wudu. You can use it to make ghusl. So that's tahur. The second type of water is tahir. It is pure in and of itself, but it cannot be used to purify. You can't use it to make wudu. Yeah, you can't use it to make wudu. You can use it to eat, to use to cook. You can use it to drink. Soup, for example. It's a type of water. But you can't use it to make wudu, because it's tahir, not tahur. It's from the second category. It's pure, not pure and purifying. It's pure but not purifying. So that's the second category, tahir. The third category is najis, and that's water which is impure. It's water that's been changed with an impurity. Somebody urinates in a bucket of water, that water is now impure. You can't use that water full stop, even to wash your feet or even to wash whatever it is. You can't use it to wash anything because it's impure. You certainly can't use it to make wudu or to drink or to cook, etc. Yeah, and so that's the third type of water: tahur, tahir, and najis. These are the three types of water. And throughout this lesson, the three types of water will become clear, inshallah. The author says, rahimahullah, فَإِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتَيْنِ أو كان جاريا لم ينجسه شيء إلا ما غير لونه أو طعمه أو ريحه وما سوى ذلك ينجس بمخالطة النجاسة. When the water amounts to قلتين being two large containers. قلتين is a quantity of the water, and it is two large containers. If water reaches the amount of two large containers, and an impurity like blood or urine or alcohol falls into that water, then this water remains tahur, it remains pure. You can use it to make wudu, you can use it to make ghusl, and so on. Because that small impurity does not affect this large amount of water, these two pots. It doesn't affect these two large containers. And so let's say I have a whole swimming pool, and somebody, throws up in the swimming pool. Or a young boy comes and urinates in the swimming pool. Such a huge amount of water, if it reaches the amount of two pots, we'll talk about what that equates to in modern measurement. If that small amount of urine or the person who threw up in it, or blood or whatever it is, it won't affect this large amount of water. Yeah. So if we see that the color hasn't changed of the water, the swimming pool, the taste hasn't changed, the smell hasn't changed, we are allowed to use this water, and the water remains pure, because the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتَيْنِ لَمْ يَحْمِلِ الْخَبَثِ. If water reaches two containers, it does not carry the impurity. So long as it doesn't change, it doesn't carry the impurity. Meaning the impurity doesn't have a single effect on it. If the water is less than this, however, if the water is, for example, the size of what we have in our bathrooms, in a bathtub, that's not equivalent to two large containers. It's not equivalent to qullatayn. And therefore, if my younger brother now comes and urinates inside this bathtub, I am no longer allowed to use this bathtub. The water that's in there, I have to throw it away, get rid of it, because it's all become impure. Because it's all become impure. All of the water now has been affected by that urine, even if it doesn't change. We're not concerned about change here. Yeah? Even if it doesn't change, because it's less than qullatayn, less than two containers. And so we don't care about whether it changes or not. We only look at whether it changes or not when it's above two containers, above qullatayn. If it's above qullatayn, then we say, okay, has it changed or not? If it's changed, then it's impure. Any water that changes becomes impure, regardless, even 1,000,000 liters. If it changes with that impurity, it's impure. Okay. If it doesn't change, then we say it remains pure. If it has reached in amount qullatayn, it remains pure and it's not affected. If it hasn't reached that amount and it's a small amount of water, then this affects the water and you no longer can use that water. Now, obviously these two large containers, qullatayn was a measurement known back then, and the scholars of today disagree on how much exactly it equates to, and they say it's between 230 up to around 300. So it's quite a big difference, I know, but generally speaking, if the water that you have is very, very large in quantity, then impurities that go into that water don't affect it. Okay? The impurities that go into that water don't affect it, so long as that water doesn't change. Small amounts of water, on the other hand, are affected. So if you have now a bucket of water and some alcohol is spilt into that water, and alcohol is impure, that water is now affected. Whether we see a change in color or taste or smell, or whether we don't see any change, that water is now affected, and so it must be thrown away. أو كان جاريا. Similarly, water that's runny, Water that runs, it's not still water. Water in a bathtub, for example, is still. But water from a fountain and other sorts of sources of water are runny. And so if water is runny, then an impurity that goes in there is not affected, according to the author, rahimahullah. Yes, so for example, we have a fountain running, and an impurity goes into that water, and it carries on running. Yeah, the water carries on running. You can drink from that water. You can wash from that water because it's runny water. It's not still water. Yeah, even if it's not huge in amount, regardless, because it's runny water, you can still use it. إلا ما غير لونه وطعمه أو ريحه, except if it changes color or taste or smell. Like we said, if a color or taste or smell is changed, that water no longer is tahur. It's no longer from the first category, which is natural water in its pure initial state. It's now changed. Whether it's a large amount of water above قلتين or whether it's less than that. والقلتان ما قارب 108 أرطال بالدمشقي. And he says that قلتان equate 108 أرطال according to Dimashqi measurement. And we said it equates to 200 to 300 liters in modern measurements. وإن طبخ في الماء ما ليس بطهور أو خالطه فغلب على اسمه أو استعمل في رفع حدث سلب طهوريته. So we have two issues now that the author addresses. The first is, if something pure but not purifying, so that's from the second category of waters, was cooked in the water or mixed with the water, meaning pure and purifying water, tahur water, and it changed its name, then it would be stripped of its attribute of being a purifier. Let's give an example to clarify this point. If I have a bucket of water, or a container of water, a pan, whatever it is, and I cook something that is pure in that water, something that is pure, not najis, pure. So it's from the second category. It's not purifying because it's not water, but it's pure. I cook something in that water. If that thing that I'm cooking, like meat or whatever else, changes the name of the water, that water now has become soup. Let's say that water is now, because of the cooking, has turned into soup. I've changed the name, it's changed the characteristics, it changed the color, changed the smell, changed the taste of that water no longer is purifying, because it's from the second type of water now. It's pure water but not purifying. So that's hopefully clear. Similarly, if I was to put a tea bag into some hot water, that's going to change to tea now. So the initial name of water, initially it was purifying water, but now it's no longer tahur, purifying. It's tahir now, because I've changed its color and its taste and probably its smell as well. So the characteristics of the water have changed, and therefore it no longer is a purifier. I no longer can use that water, which is now turned into soup or turned into tea or coffee or juice or whatever it is. I no longer can use that to clean my clothes. I no longer can use that to make wudu or ghusl. Similarly, if it was used in removing a ritual impurity, somebody makes wudu, okay? Somebody uses, for example, a shower to make wudu or ghusl. The water that drips from their body falls into a container, into a bucket. So I'm washing my arm, and the water that rolls down my arm drips into a bucket. Then I wash my face, and that water drips into the bucket. Then I wash my feet and whatever else, and the water goes into that bucket. All that water that's been collected, that I have used already to wash myself with, that water in that bucket now cannot be used by another person to make wudu or ghusl. Okay? Cannot be used to make wudu or ghusl. And this comes from the authentic hadith in the Sahihain from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes? We're not talking, remember, about the water that remains. I'm not talking about a bucket of water. I scoop some water out of that and make wudu. I'm not talking about the water that remains in the initial bucket. I'm talking about water that's actually been used. It's touched my skin. Touched my skin and then made its way into another container. That water, if collected, someone else can't come now to use that water. Because it no longer is tahur, purifying. It's now only tahir. It's still tahir. Yeah, it's not something haram to touch, but you can't use it to make wudu. The author then says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَإِذَا شَكَّ فِي طَهَارَةِ الْمَاءِ أَوْ غَيْرِهِ أَوْ نَجَاسَتِهِ بَنَى عَلَى الْيَقِينِ. This principle must be memorized and learnt and perfected. It is from the beautiful blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, if one has doubts regarding the purity of water, or the purity of something else, or its impurity, meaning I have a doubt whether this is pure, or I have a doubt whether this is impure, you should base your actions upon certainty. What does basing your actions upon certainty mean? Listen carefully to this principle, because it's an essential thing to learn. It cuts out paranoia, it cuts out waswasa, it cuts out doubts. It's a huge blessing from Allah, and if we perfect it, it would cut away so much of the tricks that the shaitan plays on us. I wake up in the morning, and I know for sure, obviously, I don't have wudu, because after sleeping, my wudu is gone. Then on my way to work, I think to myself, did I make wudu or did I not make wudu? What is the certainty? The certainty is that I don't have wudu. I know for sure I didn't have wudu initially. I am now doubtful of whether I made wudu. So what do I do with that doubt? I throw it away and I keep to the certainty, which means I don't have wudu. So now I need to make wudu before I pray. The opposite is true also. I make wudu before I leave home. Then I walk to the masjid. And when I come into the masjid, I think, did I lose my wudu walking to the masjid? I don't remember. What are we certain of? We are certain you made wudu before you left. That's the last thing we're certain of. And now we're doubting whether you have lost your wudu on the way to the masjid or not. So we take that doubt and throw it away, and we stick to the certainty, which means I have wudu. Same thing. I go into the bathtub, and I see my younger brother go inside. Then he comes back out. And I say, now, I don't know my younger brother. He's a troublemaker. Maybe he urinated in the bathtub. The natural, what are we certain of when it comes to water? We know that water is pure and purifying. Water in its natural state is pure and purifying. So we're certain that water is pure and purifying. Now a doubt has come. Did my brother urinate there or not? I take that doubt, get rid of it, and I say that the water is pure and purifying, so I can use that water to clean myself. And you throw away any doubts. A doubt is not strong enough to remove a certainty. No one can come to me and say, brother, how can you use that water? Your brother went in there, maybe he urinated in it. Well, unless you saw him with your own eyes urinate in there, then as far as I'm concerned, it is still pure, and therefore I'm going to use it. I want to pray outside. Someone comes and says, brother, dogs walk around here. Maybe their saliva goes there, maybe they urinate in these places, you never know. You shouldn't pray there. I say, give me your proof. Can you tell me with certainty that you saw a dog, drip, a dog's saliva drip on that place? Or did you see with your own eyes for certainty a dog urinate in that place? If the answer is yes, then okay, I'll go and pray somewhere else. If the answer is no, then I'm going to pray here, because the certainty is that earth is pure. Allah's created the earth pure for us, so we can pray anywhere. وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. The earth has been made a place of worship, a place which we can pray on, and pure. The earth is pure, and this is a mistake people make. Some people can't pray unless they have a prayer mat. Pray, what's the problem? In fact, it's probably better to pray just like that, because it's much more humble, it's much better with humility, for humility. When your head touches the pure ground that's not covered at all, it's much more, it's much greater in humility. Don't listen to doubts that say, oh, this might be unclean, that's a doubt. Ignore doubts. And this principle can actually be applied all the time in life. Did somebody mean this negative thing, or did he mean something else? Assume it was a positive thing. Because the asl with every Muslim is that we excuse them and we assume the best in them. So you don't assume negative. Some people have a disease in our days. They assume the negative from a Muslim. If they hear something from a Muslim, especially that they don't like because of a poison in their heart, they just have hatred for another Muslim because they disagree with them on views or something, they go out, every single word they say, they will assume it in the worst light possible, just to make an excuse to backbite this Muslim and slander this Muslim and attack this Muslim. And it has come to the extent that people of knowledge and people of da'wah and people of taqwa are having this done to them by people whose hearts have died a long time ago, and people whose hearts have become rock, or even harder than rock. And as Allah described them, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً. Then the hearts became hard. After that, after the evil actions they're involved in, following and trying to find the faults of Muslims, trying to pick up on their mistakes, then assuming them in the worst light possible. The one who does this, his heart becomes like a rock, or even harder than a rock, or أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً. So we need to be careful from these things. Had these brothers and sisters, generally brothers are involved in this kind of batil, had these brothers stuck to this principle, which is that you leave things upon certainty. This is a Muslim, we've known him to be a good person, let's assume the best in him. Unless I can say for 100% certainty that he meant something evil, he meant something negative with 100% certainty, and that's difficult to find out. But if you get to that certainty, then you have maybe a case. Otherwise, keep your mouth closed, keep your tongue to yourself, save yourself in the dunya, and more importantly, save yourself in the akhirah. فَإِنَّ الرَّجُلَ يَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا يهوي به في النار 70 خريفا وفي رواية تهوي به في النار ما بين المشرق والمغرب. A person speaks with a word without paying attention to it, and it throws him into the hellfire a distance of 70 years. It's not something light, something to be easy on. Anyways, the principle here, the author puts it in the chapter of water and purity, because it's something that people commonly become confused about and mistaken about. Okay, we always stick to the certainty. You're sure you had wudu? You have wudu. You always will have wudu until you are certain you've lost it. Doesn't matter what doubts you have. We'll end this lesson with that. Wallahu a'lam, wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.